All right, very good. So today we're going to be talking about understanding the meaning of sexual intimacy, or what I like to say, the gospel of physical intimacy, the good news about what God is trying to communicate to us in this whole realm of physical intimacy. Why did he make us the way he did, and our physical bodies? And then what does that teach us about what I like to call non-sexual intimacy, which is often overlooked. And oftentimes people talk about intimacy, they don't think about, they think about sexual intimacy. They don't think about non-sexual intimacy or psychological intimacy. But that's really what I want to talk about. And so I just wrote this little prayer that I want to read before I start. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord Jesus Christ, help me to trust you with the content of this talk, leading me and this group as you will on this topic that so many have become wounded by in the sexual revolution, and how this wound has led us to a lack of understanding and often a fear of this topic. Help us, Lord, to confront the lies therein. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, so I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I talk to people about intimacy stuff all day long. And the things that come up oftentimes are, I don't really like myself. Most people don't usually talk about that, but they don't like themselves, and that's what I help them with. Or, I don't like my parents. Or, I don't like my kids. Or, the worst one, I don't like my spouse. And so, but the other one that people don't usually talk to me about, but is real as far as when you really get into the deeper intimacy of the human person, and that is that I don't like God. I don't like things about God. Now, most of us, good Catholics, we would not say that out loud. Because it's like, well, I'm a Christian, I'm a follower of Christ. I can't say that I don't like God, but it's more like we don't like some of the things he does or what he allows, particularly the things that can cause us to suffer or cause our loved ones to suffer. We don't understand this. But every time we commit any kind of a sin volitionally, we're in a certain sense saying, I don't like your way, God. I want to do it my way. And that's where these resentments, these hidden resentments, can come out. But this good news of physical intimacy, what we're talking about here, the purpose of this talk has been the purpose of sexual intimacy has been lost in this world of the sexual revolution, and it's really kind of crept its way into the church because, as you guys have noticed, I assume all you're Catholic. Catholics don't like to talk about sex too much. It's a little scary. And so, and even the word intimacy, it's like, it's kind of categorized off into this scary place of the sexual realm. And I hope to kind of, break out some of that or just get some introductory ideas about why this has happened. And so mostly, if you study theology of the body, ideologically, we understand, okay, there's certain realities of the marital embrace that are reflective of Christ and how he loves his church. Okay, we know that concept. But how do we actually put that into practice? What does that mean? Most people get a little squeamish, a little squirmy when we start talking about how the marital act is a reflection of how Christ loves his church. It's like, what does that really mean? And how do we put that into practice? Well, today, I've noticed that when people talk about physical intimacy or, sexual intercourse, they use it in three ways that are not in lines with what the church teaches. So the church teaches that sexual intimacy is about two things. And the first one, obviously, everybody knows, procreation, to come in contact with the life-creating power of the Holy Trinity and be a co-creator with him and make new life. Super powerful and deeply intimate concept that the church teaches us about the marital act. And then the other one is that it's designed to create a bond. So when people get married and raise children, this requires a very close bond because it's hard. It's really hard to be that close to somebody and not get hurt, wounded, confused, and all kinds of things. And so you need a bond to pull off this task of being married. And so that's the purpose. Those are the two purposes that the church has put forward: babies and bonding. And so, but there's three ways that I found that are primarily what people use sexual intimacy for. The first one, and many people, sadly, even especially Catholics, but all people of all religions, they use sexuality as a way to make a connection. It's like, well, we don't know what else to do. We don't know how to do non-sexual intimacy, so we start doing physical intimate stuff. And then, that kind of takes you down a road, which we'll get into in a minute. And the other one they do is they use sexual intimacy, as a form of entertainment or a distraction. I'm going to have sex to make me feel better, or to make me feel happy, or to distract me from something else that's bothering me or upsetting me. And the third one, and this is the primary problem in my mind, we use it as a substitute for non-sexual intimacy. We don't know how to do non-sexual intimacy, so what's left? The last man standing, as it were, sexual intimacy. And so it's really problematic, and it's really what kind of messes up the whole thing about why people have sexual problems in their marriage, because they don't know how to do non-sexual intimacy, and sexual intimacy has been used in one of those other three ways that's disordered, and it's causing problems. So I'm going to talk about how sex fails in making a connection. That's the first thing I want to talk about, because people use it for connecting all the time. I want to get to know you, and of course this is, as a Catholic, we wouldn't say that we want to make this a goal, but in practice, most Catholics, sadly, they have sex before marriage. Because why? It's just a cultural thing, and they don't know what else to do. They don't know how to do non-sexual intimacy, because it's not that tough if you're really good at non-sexual intimacy, which few people are. But if you are actually get really good at non-sexual intimacy, then sexual intimacy isn't quite so pressing. You don't need it as bad. But the reason it doesn't work, as far as a way to make a connection, because it does not work to make a connection. And I'm going to just give you, I think, three reasons here why. The first one is that most of us, we don't know ourselves. The last talk I did was about this reality of knowing yourself at a deeper level, and so I'd recommend listening to that. So we don't know ourselves at a deeper level, and so that we don't know, especially the worst parts of ourselves. So those worst parts of ourselves, those icky parts of ourselves, we don't want to get to know them. We just want to get them out of the way. We want to get them lost. We want to get them converted. We want to, not talk about them. And this, St. Paul refers to this: why do I do the things I hate? It's like, why do I do this? This evil inside of me that takes over. It's like, and St. Paul is like, I just wish that part would go away. And so we learn to run from the bad parts of ourselves. And so this prevents us from knowing ourselves at a deeper level. So, and when we don't know ourselves, it creates a certain degree of emptiness inside of us. We feel this emptiness, and that emptiness then creates pain. And that pain then, it messes up our ability to actually connect. And so that emptiness, though, it needs to be soothed. And so, because if we don't soothe it, then we're just in pain. And when we're in pain, we don't feel safe. And when we don't feel safe, we can't connect. And so this reality of saying, okay, I'm just in pain, and so I'm running from the pain. I'm also running from my self-knowledge. I'm running from getting to know myself better, because I just want the pain to go away. I don't want to dive into it and see what's there and see what's causing it. And getting to know ourselves at a deeper level. And that's another talk too. If you go to my website, briankelso.com, the talks tab, navigating the fears of intimacy, that's really a good talk about getting to know yourself better. Because you can't be intimate with somebody else. You don't learn how to be intimate with yourself. But anyway, but if we're if we're leaning into this, reality of not knowing ourselves and the pain and hiding from it, we can't connect with somebody else if we're just soothing the pain. And how do we soothe the pain? Well, sexual intimacy. I don't know what else to do. Well, it feels good, and so this is a way to feel good with somebody else. So this is what we end up doing, and we just buy that lie that sexual intimacy is about making a connection. Oh, this is how we make a connection. We take our clothes off and get in bed together, and we're making a connection. You're not. And why? Why does sex fail to create a connection? And here's what it is. There's a huge difference between bonding and connecting. Connecting is when you're getting to know somebody. Bonding is you already know them and you're strengthening and you're valuing and cherishing that connection that's there. So if you're having sex to create a connection, well, you're connecting to someone that you don't even know. You can't bond to somebody that you don't really know. But people do make a bond because sex does bond, but it's just an unhealthy bond. When you get bonded to somebody without knowing them, as a general rule, that's kind of risky. It just creates risk in the relationship. Now, of course, where sin abounds, grace abounds. It's not to say that people that don't have sex before marriage can't ever have a bond. Yeah, they can. It's just the hard way. It's just the harder way of doing it. So back to my outline here. Okay, so bonding celebrates a strength of a connection that's already rooted in the substantive knowledge of the other. I'm connected to you because I know you. I understand you. I understand myself and my reaction to you. I understand that. And that's a bond now. You really know that. But when you're trying to create a bond with somebody that you don't even know, well, then a lot of problems come with that. But again, a connection is made when we truly know the other and find value in who they are. There's this commonality. We can be very different, but there's a common purpose. It's like, that's the reason that my wife wanted to marry me. She saw things in me that she found common. I like to tease her. I like to say that she had a really low bar, She only needed three things. A man. Okay, I got that one. And he had to be able to get married in the Catholic Church. And I had that one. And the last one, this is the one where she lost most other guys. He had to be a true Catholic. A true Catholic. And my wife's a beautiful woman, and a lot of men would have pursued her or did pursue her. But she had this ability to just say, one date, done. That guy's not a real Catholic. I passed that test. I got the beautiful woman who's just beautiful inside and out. She's an amazing person. But anyway, we got to know each other, and thanks be to God, we didn't engage in sex before marriage. And we had not had a relationship like that before. For us, it was a second relationship. And so we knew disordered relationship. That's what we knew. We knew how to do it the wrong way. We had done that. And so after I converted to the Catholic faith and got an annulment, then we got together. But she got to know me and I got to know her. And we already had kind of done it the wrong way. So no, we're going to do it the right way this time. And with the help of the Blessed Virgin Mary and lots of study of theology of the body, that's how we really developed this non-sexual intimacy. And it really wasn't that difficult to not, be sexual before we got married because of that. So anyway, because what happens is when you get bonded to somebody, you have a sexual contact with somebody, it feels really good. It feels like, inside the brain, it's very much like what heroin does biochemically in the brain. It's very similar to what heroin does. It's just an amazing high to have a sexual climax. And so what happens is that when you start having that outside of a real bonded relationship, well, one of the beauties of this high is it kind of blinds you from seeing things about the other. Now, before you're married, that blinding is not good. It just doesn't help the relationship. After marriage, very helpful for the relationship because people are human and people can be difficult to live with. And so you kind of need that. That's why the Lord made it that way, with that, kind of drug-like ability. So it helps you kind of overlook stuff if you're kind of approaching sexual intimacy with non-sexual intimacy. So anyway, but the deal is, if we don't do that, it keeps us in a pattern of hiding. Because remember I said that if we're in this pain of not feeling good about ourselves, and then we're with somebody else and they're in that same pain, we're both in pain, we don't know how to connect, and if we use sexual intimacy to kind of hide from that pain, hide from our inability, this is a really problematic start to a relationship. Now again, where sin abounds, grace abounds. It can be overcome, but it is the hard way. And I think as catechists, we want to be able to teach, especially kids, but even adults that I work with, it's like, well, why? What's the big deal? We love each other. We're going to get married. Why can't we just have sex? What's the big deal? And it's like, well, there's a lot of big deal. Psychologically, it's teaching you both that this person that I'm with, we're in relationship to make each other feel good. It's like, long term, after you get married, that creates a problem. That creates a problem because anybody that's been married for a little while knows that there's a lot of times you don't feel so good with that other person. It's like, okay. And since people start thinking about divorce sometimes in this culture because, well, you don't make me feel good. You're supposed to make me feel good. It sets that foundation that's very, very troubling, very difficult. And so so getting back to this thing about it requires a deeper connection of self-knowledge. And again, we don't know ourselves because we can't share ourselves because we don't know ourselves well enough. And how do we get to know ourselves? We actually have to learn how to sit in pain. We have to be able to sit in a difficult spot. Getting to know that icky part of myself. Why do I do that? We have to be able to sit in that and tolerate it and let God teach us how to sit in it. He says, as a Protestant, I just hated this verse. I just couldn't stand it. It made no sense to me. But it says, come to me, all you who are labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Come to me and let me teach you, for I'm gentle and humble, and you'll find rest for your souls. And this is the part I hated, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's like, it's crazy. It's not easy. It's not light. How come? Because I always came to God with my own agenda. I did not know how to come to God with his agenda to let me teach me. I wanted him to take all my pain away. That was my agenda. You take my pain away and I stay in ignorance about where that pain's coming from. But his agenda is, let me teach you. I'll show you what that pain is about. I can help you with that pain. Then you get to know yourself at a deeper level, and then you get to share yourself authentically with somebody else. And when you share yourself authentically, what happens? You get to see their reaction to your authentic self. This is why many people, they don't know each other when they get married. They don't know each other at all because they haven't been able to show themselves or share themselves. Now, this is why we need the sacrament, the Holy Sacrament. It's divine energy to help us overcome these difficulties. But we don't get closer to the other if we are hiding from this pain, hiding from our fear of knowledge of the other, hiding from the fear of knowledge of ourselves, hiding from the fear of the other person's reaction to my authentic self. So that's pretty much why it just can never be a form of connection. because it's all about hiding from pain, making yourself feel good. Does that make sense, everybody? So, why it fails as a form of entertainment. This one's pretty obvious, especially to us more catechized Catholics, but I'll just go through it quickly. So, when it comes to a loving relationship, what is love? Love is learning how to give of yourself, like what I was just talking about, and how to receive the other. Lust, on the other hand, is about making yourself feel good. And so remember what I said earlier about if you lay that as a foundation, oh, you're here to make me feel good, that's just a really bad start. It's kind of, I like to use a difference. I was a painting contractor for many years before I became a therapist, and you have this tool that I always carried with me down here in my little hip or my little thigh pocket. It's a putty knife. And a putty knife's got, really it's kind of thick. It's got a blunt edge, and it's just for, putting in spackling and putty and stuff like that. And if you take that knife versus a surgical knife, well, they're both knives, but they do something very different. If I was a surgeon and I used a putty knife, it would cause a lot of problems, big problems, cause infection, cause it to, you have to rip somebody open instead of a nice, easy cut that's easy to seal back up. So lust is kind of like that. It's the wrong tool for the job. It's a tool that causes infection in the relationship for all those reasons we just talked about. So if the reason we need lust, though, the reason why do we have to make ourselves feel better? I just talked about it a few minutes ago. Because we don't know how to sit with the pain. And so we're trying to entertain, soothe away this pain rather than sitting with it. And so it's just like coming to know God. It's like, why did God have bad things happen to me as a kid? Why did he have that happen to me? That was something that I always resented God for. You let this stuff happen to me. You abandoned me. And I had this kind of hidden, secret resentment. I just didn't let it out much because it was so unchristian and it's just so inappropriate. But once I learned to sit with it, and because of my lack of faith, I didn't really believe it until I started seeing it. But I started asking, okay, you got to show me, God, why did you let this crazy stuff happen to me? Why did you let it happen? It's like, and then I came to see, because he wanted to show me how he can heal this, how he works through bad stuff and creates a greater good, just like he proved on the cross. So the gist of it is we come to this deeper knowledge of ourselves by learning to sit with it and being open to him showing us where that goes. So, because see, if we haven't done that work and we haven't really worked out where the bad stuff is and how God's going to convert it, then what do? We look at relationship, especially physical intimacy, sexuality, and we need that. We need it to soothe the pain, especially in a relationship. And it's like, then we're on a foundation then that is like what I just talked about. So instead, it robs us the freedom of love. It robs us because we're afraid to get to know ourselves and why that stuff is there. So, as I came to see that God let this bad stuff happen to me as a kid so that he could show me how that I could heal, and then I could share it with others. And when I started sharing it with others, and God got me into this job where I do that, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful, it's so good. But we have to learn how to sit in that pain. And love is the answer to that. Lust will never do it. Lust is only soothing it. But what causes us to lust? If we have a lust problem, and it doesn't have to be, it could be sexual lust, but it also could be lust for security, lust for soothing the wound, lust for just being with somebody. That lust is a sign of the deficit of love. And no human being can ever satisfy it. We have to get it from God. And so if you notice that lust in yourself or people you're teaching, you want to be able to tell them, hey, lust is what I like to call a pain symptom of the soul. You know how when you have a pain in the body, it's like if I got a pain in my stomach, I don't just go to the doctor and say, well, give me something to make the pain in my stomach go away. Well, that's not very responsible. If the doctor did that, not a very good doctor. The doctor would say, well, let's find out what's wrong let's find out what's causing the pain, and then we'll treat that issue, and then maybe we can give you something for the pain too, and while we're healing it, that's okay. But address the wound. So lust is a wound of the soul that says, what's the disease? Deficit of love. Deficit of not just any love, but unconditional love. So this act of knowing ourselves at a deeper level, being able to connect with God at a deeper level, knowing Him, knowing how He is going to convert the disasters of my life or the disasters in people's lives that I serve or people that I love, my family, or people that I serve in my job at the church. It's like, that's the key, being able to kind of sit with that and to be able to say, let God love me. Because if I can't let God love me, then I'm going to approach relationship in this needy place where I need this human being to love me in a certain way. And if they can't do it, of course they can't, because they're not God. So they're going to be limited in how they're going to be able to do it. And so this is what's so beautiful about this reality of non-sexual intimacy, starting with God and then to the other relationships. So before I move forward, I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions about what I'm sharing so far. Is this making sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to look a little bit more at sexual intimacy, just kind of a brief look at this. And what I have found, my good friend and colleague, Patience, now Silva, used to be Patience Dayton, Patience Silva now, her and I, last year, we did a marriage retreat and the retreat was, we'd never done one before, and she actually got asked to do it, theology of the body and marriage. And what we ended up talking about with theology of the body is how the sexual act itself, what the contents of the sexual act, how those contents teach us about non-sexual intimacy. What can we learn about it? And we talked about this kind of stuff all weekend, theology of the body stuff, right? It was a lot of fun. We get to do one next year too, so I'm excited about that. So let's think for a minute here about this. What causes the biggest conflicts in marriage? What is it? Disagreement, and you argue about differences. That's primarily it. And it's not just the arguing, but it's the disrespecting of those differences. I don't respect the way you're approaching this. I don't feel respected about the way you approach me. And so that disrespect, well, it comes up in different things, like the way we handle money, the way we raise children, how often we engage in sexual relationships or sexual contact, or the way we do it. Or the fun one, tends to be a real fun one, how we navigate relationships with in-laws. that can always be a lot of fun. Because the other family is different, way different, as a general rule, than the one I was raised in, whatever. So sometimes the difference is really good, and sometimes the difference is not good. But we can always count on differences. So we have to learn how to navigate those. So back to the sexual act itself and what it teaches us, because this is really quite amazing. Because I've heard so many people come to me, they're on the brink of divorce, and they say, what I found out is my spouse and I are just too different. And I always want to laugh. It's like, that's your strong suit. That's the best thing you got going. And you think about like a penis and a vagina. Very different, right? Very different. And yet, what's God telling us by this dramatic difference between those two body parts? He's designed them to come together, to cooperate in a very special way that creates this bond and babies. But what's he telling us again about this dramatic difference? And what does it mean? That oh, difference is our friend. It's good if we do it respectfully, of course. If we approach difference respectfully. And so, sadly, we're not very good at this. Why? I talked about this a lot in my last talk, and that is because we can't give what we don't have. We're used to disrespecting ourselves and the differences inside of ourselves that we don't like. So then we end up sharing that. We share that same kind of negative energy with ourselves. We'll end up sharing that negative energy towards something that's inconvenient or different, and we're offended by it rather than approached correctly. Now, when you think about those differences and the reality of those differences, really, again, it's about respecting the differences. Because you can have lots of difference, and if there's respect to that difference, well, things go pretty well, actually. It's when we disrespect the difference. And so for instance, I'm going to get a little explicit here, but so when you think about what it takes for the sexual act, the penis has to be hard. The vagina has to be soft. And you think about, so one person has to be hard and the other person has to be soft. And otherwise, it doesn't go good together. Otherwise, it feels more like what we would call a violation. It's not going to work. It's not going to go well. And so, and you think about that, I know it's a little awkward, but you think about it, and this is what it takes in non-sexual intimacy. You have to be able to tolerate that difference and to respect what's going on. Yes, question?
It's like the differences come together for a greater good.
Yes, exactly. And they come together for a greater good, but the way they do that is very different. So again, one communicator has to say and do and be hard, difficult for the other person, the person that's being penetrated. And that other person, though, they have to be ready and to receive that hardness, that difficulty, that difference. Because if they're not ready to receive it, well, what's going to happen? It's going to feel like a violation. And it's not going to be good. And this happens in relationship in a psychological way all the time. I'm trying to force my opinion on you. Now, of course, we can take the male or female position on this, male or female, it doesn't matter. This reality of sometimes one person has to say the hard truth. This hurts. I don't like this. And the other person has to be able to say, oh, tell me about that. They have to receive that and say, tell me more about why it's hurting you. As opposed to, well, you're hurting me too. You think you're the only one hurting? I'm hurting too. Again, that's that's called trying to penetrate without lubrication. So just to be explicit, you have to have some lubrication. And what's the lubrication? This is what I talked about in the last talk. Feelings and needs. That's the lubrication. You have to do as Jesus says. You have to point at the log in your own eye. I need help. This is what's happening between us. You have to talk about you. This hurts me. That's the lubricant. I am hurt by this. I'm not saying you hurt me. I'm saying I am hurt this way. And if I sat with it between me and God, I can say, this hurts me because it reminds me of the way my dad treated me. He ignored me. He didn't ask me what I thought or felt. And I learned to shut up and not say anything. And it's like, oh. And when I tell my wife that, it's like, no, I need you to say it this way. Because if I hear it this way, if I hear it in this harsh way, I'm going to assume you don't care about me. Of course, when I can tell it, I say, oh, okay. That's I have kind of a habit of saying things in a harsh way. Because, well, that's how I was raised. I was raised with a kind of a harsh tone. He just said what it is. And she's better at just saying what it is. I'm better at hiding from that fear of conflict because the harshness of my own dad. But the reality is, we have to be able to, take turns, so to speak, being the receiver and being the penetrator. We have to be able to tolerate that. But if you don't talk about feelings and needs first, then it's not gonna feel respectful. It's gonna feel disrespectful. And this is not fun. And so, but you learn how to listen instead of tell. And that's kind of, again, that lubrication. I want to listen. I want to understand. And even when I'm sharing, I'm not telling, I'm sharing. See the difference as opposed to pointing the finger at the other? Behold, the log is in your own eye. First take the speck or the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly enough to help your spouse. So you really need to be able to do both, though, because sometimes you have, in a relationship, you'll have someone who's really assertive and bold, like the oldest in the family, like my wife. She's the oldest. She's more assertive and more bold. And then the youngest in the family, like me, who's used to being told what to do, used to being controlled. I don't have an opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. I don't even know what my opinion is. It doesn't even matter. I learned to ignore it. And so, thankfully, by the time we got together, we had worked through a lot of those kinds of issues, and we were able to speak, so we didn't run into that as much. I was able to just tell her, hey, I'm feeling kind of controlled right now. I'm feeling like my opinion doesn't matter. And she'd say, oh, well, okay, well, I want to know. Because she's not like my dad. But it would feel like she's being my dad, like she didn't really care, or it doesn't matter. Well, that's not really coming from her, it's coming from me. And if it's coming from her, well, that's her issue, it's not mine. And so being able to kind of, again, with the help of God, that stuff earlier that I was talking about being with the pain, understanding it, and then I can talk about it. Then I can share it. I can be present. And then I get to see her reaction to my pain, as opposed to pointing the finger and telling her, you're messing this up. Again, that's a non-lubricated penetration. It doesn't go well. And everyone who's been in a relationship long knows all about that stuff. It just doesn't go well. And so this is, again, where it's related to feeling safe or feeling unsafe. And so this is what we have to work on, is learning how that we can move into this place of safety. So any questions about this before I move on? Okay. We don't want to talk about sex. We don't even ask a question.
Especially when you come from like growing up, when like you said, our parents said this is what you're gonna do, no questions, and you get into a relationship, and then you feel like I can't say anything, so you just have to follow.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Does this kind of come down to like wounds also that come out later in your relationship?
Exactly. We don't even know these wounds are here. I mean, I thought I was, when I attempted marriage the first time, I really believed that I was a very calm and patient person. I really believed that about me. Because why? I had learned how to control my anger. I learned how to shove that anger down and lock it up. I never let my anger out. Because I didn't know how to be angry and not sin. I didn't know how to do it. And so that stuff was locked up. But I didn't know myself at all. I didn't understand what my anger was about. And I really didn't get in touch with my anger and start making sense out of it till I converted to the Catholic faith. And I started sitting in adoration and finding this anger at God, this anger at myself, this anger at the world. And then I started seeing it. It's like, oh my gosh, it was so scary. But the reason this is so important to be able to sit with it is because then I started to get to know myself and understand myself. And I really recommend the last talk, because I go into those compatibility skills, and I talk about this in more detail about how to dive deeper into this. But again, like you said, sex is so beautiful, so sacred. When participating in the life-creating power of the Holy Trinity, it converts us. And when we engage in that act, what happens is we get a drop of unconditional love touches us. When the Holy Spirit touches, when we give new life, and where does that get pointed at? To our children. I never ever understood unconditional love until I had a kid of my own. I had no concept of it because I didn't exchange in that with my parents or my siblings or anyone else. But my kids, now I wasn't that great at showing them unconditional love. Thanks be to God, I didn't yell at them or anything, but I would tease them, I would be disconnected from them. Why? Because I was disconnected from me. I didn't know how to connect with them because I couldn't connect with me. And it was all this stuff that I'd jammed away and hidden. And so, but I did have that touch of that unconditional love. And thanks be to God, today I have a son who is an atheist. I have a daughter who has a very different relationship and kind of definition of God than I do. And another daughter who has, no interest in it. And I have 2 stepchildren that have vibrant Catholic identities. So I have a very different relationship with all of my kids, but they all, thanks be to God, are rooted in respect, because I can put these things into practice, because I've sat in front of the Blessed Sacrament or in Mass weeping and letting myself sit in this pain and get to know myself at a deeper level and understand myself. And again, I'd really recommend the last talk for that. But
is that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, is
yes.
that last talk on your website, or on that Brian Kelso?
Yeah, not yet. I just recorded it today.
Oh, so it'll be down
so
there?
It'll either be on my website. I don't know if I'm going to put it on my website or not, but it'll definitely be on my YouTube site. And so my YouTube site will.
How would we actually start?
It's just Brian Kelso. It's just Brian Kelso at YouTube. And that's what it is. Brian Kelso.
What was the
spelled
name
like
of that specific talk?
It was for compatibility skills. That's to do with compatibility skills. I have one on my website, but this is like a part 2, the one that I did today. So the first one I did, kind of more surfacey stuff, and then the one I did today was a deeper. It was like a part 2 of the first one I did, which is on my website already. Compatibility skills.
So that'll be on there sometime this week.
Yeah, I should be able to. I'm not very tech savvy, but I've done it enough times. I should be able to do it. So then again, this bonding thing. Now, hopefully you're starting to get the idea about how when you know yourself and when you get to be yourself, because you're not afraid of rejection from the other. If you're not afraid of rejection, because why? Because you sat with God and were able to be with God and get this unconditional love from God. So once you can get that, then you can approach relationship without being so darn afraid. And then you can be authentic. And then when you can be authentic, because you've been authentic with God, you practice with Him, you got some unconditional love there, now I can let myself be seen by the other. And I'm just telling you, as one who had no clue how to be non-sexually intimate, because I didn't know how to do it with myself, and I was a prisoner to lust. Why? Because I didn't have authentic love. Remember, lust is a pain symptom of the soul. It wounds us. It causes us to grasp at something else to soothe the pain. So that's the symptom. It's like we know we don't have enough unconditional love because we're hiding our parts. We're not being authentic with God if we have a lust wound of any kind. Again, it doesn't have to be sexual lust. Most of my lust was geared towards, certainly sexual lust was part of it, but money was a big wound for me. I was a workaholic. I just had to be just making money all the time, or else I was no good. And it just really hit me hard. If I couldn't bring it, if I couldn't provide enough money, then I was just no good. as a father. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible wound. So much stress and pressure in my life about money because of that. But once I started tapping into this unconditional love source, it was like, I'm not that worried about money. Just the other day I realized, oh my gosh, I have not set enough aside. I started this whole different thing this year, and I started handling it instead of my wife. And she says, well, how much money have you put by his taxes? I was like, oh, I don't think I've been putting that much money away for taxes. And I went and looked, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're way behind. And I was like, I kind of laughed. I was like, I wasn't upset about it. I was just like a little concerned for a minute. But I mean, if that would have happened even 5-8 years ago, I would have been in a crisis. I would have been on my computer trying to figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to manage this? And it's like, oh, God's got a plan. And it just felt good to be able to, and it felt even better for my wife to look at me and not see me all spun out like I was in the past about money. It's just amazing. So many layers to this stuff. But anyway, I'd really like to, I think we've got time. Let's see, what time are we supposed to end?
15 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to,
1 hour more.
I'd like to hand this out. And I want to go through this thing. Okay, everybody got one? Here we go. Okay, everybody got one. Okay, so this is the relational square. I got this from Henry Cloud. He's a really famous psychologist in the evangelical Protestant world, from his book, as you see right there in the corner, The Power of the Other. And so as you look at this, you look at the 4 types of relationship. Okay, you got no relationship, bad relationship, fake relationship, and genuine relationship. And I cover this on another talk, and this is on the way over here. Like I said, I just felt like the Holy Spirit wanted me to say some different stuff, but I really like this thing here, because most of us now, in no relationship, everyone fears this one, because we're not meant to be alone. It's not good for us to be alone. With the exception of people that are experts at connecting with God. As we call those, those monks that go away and live all by themselves, hermits, that's the word. These guys are masters at relationship with God. But as a general rule, if you don't get relationship with other people, I mean, you become a Jeffrey Dahmer or or whatever it is, these crazy guys, who is the Unabomber. These guys, people lose their mind if they're all by themselves, in isolation. So no relationship is really scary. So most everyone, we prefer bad relationships over no relationship, because bad is better than none. And so in a bad relationship basically means I'm either the controller or I'm being controlled. You see how there's that hiding there? I don't know how to really be authentic, so I control the other person. I don't know how to share my feelings and needs, I just control them. Or I let myself be controlled by just doing what I'm told, so I don't have to face conflict or deal with that. But so you have these fears of rejection, and you have feelings of inadequacy, so you either control or be controlled. You can't be authentic. That's a bad relationship. Now, if you're in a bad relationship for very long, then it just doesn't feel good. And we're not meant for bad relationships. We're meant for good relationships, or authentic ones. And so we will start gravitating towards the fake. Now, I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to, dozens since I started this in this field, but even before then, many people even before then, friends of mine who were good Christians or good Catholics who commit adultery. And why did they do that? Why would they do that? Because of the wound. They didn't know how to connect with their spouse. And then somebody else came along and said, I'll connect with you. I'll meet those needs that person didn't even know they were there. They were hidden from them. They didn't know they were there. And guess what? The other person starts meeting that need, and it's like somebody that's starving and somebody's all of a sudden offering them food. They just don't know how to say no. They can't say no. Or they won't. And it's really sad and it's tragic. But this is where St. Paul, again, where sin abounds, grace abounds further. The humiliation of doing that can often bring people to repentance of saying, I've got to start being authentic. And sometimes those adulterous affairs work out to, again, where sin abounds, grace abounds, to helping people get to know themselves at a deeper level and start being authentic. It's like, what would cause me to do that? Oh, I have to sit in that pain and get to know myself at a deeper level. Now, that's a dramatic example, but we all have examples in our own hearts of the thing we do that we hate. And we can get to know ourselves at a deeper level by sitting with the pain rather than trying to soothe it away. But that's what we do when we go to a fake relationship. And so, as you know, again, we have these relationships. They can be with a substance or with a person, you know, where people just tell me what I want to hear. They're just an echo chamber for all of my stuff. They never really challenge me or confront me. They just tell me what I want to hear. Or, you know, these adulterous type relationships, or even, you know, what they call, intimate relationships that aren't sexual, but they're where you're dumping on your spouse, and the person just says, oh yeah, your spouse is terrible, and they never really help us see the log in our own eye. So those are examples of fake relationships with people. There's no real demands. Drug buddies or drinking buddies or whatever, gaming buddies. You know, there's all kinds of friends like that. But also people use, you know, gambling or porn or, you know, masturbation or, you know, complaining. There's all different ways that we hide from the pain of this non-sexual intimacy that's not getting met. And so, and those are all fake relationships. And if we have a desire for a fake relationship, what does that tell us? We have a deficit in authentic relationships. So, and the reason I'm keep emphasizing this is because what I did to myself for years, I just shamed and attacked myself for my fake relationships. I just would just brutalize myself because I thought that if I'm mean to myself, I'll get better. Where did I learn that? I learned it from my dad and from my mom. It's like, and they didn't do that. They weren't trying to brainwash me to try to make me cruel or hard on myself. They just didn't have anything else to share but that. All they had was to share that. And they weren't doing it on purpose. They were good people with good agendas, but just really bad habits, especially my dad. Terrible habits for parenting. But anyway, the reality is that we want to let our fake relationship and our bad relationship, always let our fake relationship point us back to the bad, because it's in the bad where we're seeing the truth. I hide because I've always hidden. I hide because my parents taught me to hide. I hide because I don't know what else to do. So then what does that qualify us for? Unconditional love. Because remember, conditional love is I'm doing things right, I get to be loved. Unconditional love is I'm messing up and I get to be loved. And so always let your fake relationship take you back to the bad, and then you sit in the bad and say, what's the log in my eye? What is it? And why do I have no lubrication in me to be penetrated by God's love? Because I don't share God. I don't share with God my feelings and my needs. I'm not authentic with God. I don't know how to be authentic with God. I remember when I was becoming Catholic and I would sit there in the adoration and I'd get so mad at God. And he was giving me a grace. I was so mad at him for letting my life turn out the way it turned out. I was so mad at him. I remember looking at an image of the Pietà and I say, look at you. Look what you did to your own mother. It's like, you didn't take her to heaven. You made her watch that crucifixion. You're just cruel, God. I just got so mad at him. Well, why was I so mad at God about what he did to the Blessed Mother? Because I was mad at him for what he did to me. because I wasn't able or willing to see or share with him my feelings and my needs. But when I started sharing those feelings and needs, and I started to weep, and guess what I felt? Love. Unconditional love, because I was being disrespectful and mean and inappropriate to God, and guess what he gave me? Love. He gave me love. It still blows my mind when I think about this unconditional love. And so that's when I started to taste this unconditional love, and I started to open up. And this is really the call for all of us, to be able to share that pain with God and his unconditional love. Be able to sit with it, be able to name it. Let out your anger, let out your hurt, your sadness. And that's the call to genuine. So if we can't do that with others, as for the most part, unless we have an exceptionally holy spouse, which thanks be to God, I do. she's really good at forgiving me for my childishness. And it's just like, I learned to believe in God at a deeper level after I got married to her, because she was the first human being that had enough unconditional love. She could just tell me the truth. I would just do something terribly inappropriate. I'd act like my dad towards her, and then she would say, I'd say to her, have you forgiven me yet? She said, no, I haven't. Do you want to talk about it? No, I don't want to talk about it. And then she'd just go her way. She wasn't ready to talk to me, but and then later she'd be like, it'd be time to go to bed, and we still hadn't spoke. Do you want to pray the rosary with me? She'd ask me, because we always end the day with the rosary. Do you want to pray the rosary with me? Really? You want to pray with me still? It's like, she's not holding it. She still may be hurt about the way I hurt her, but she's going to pray with me. Why? Because of her unconditional love of God. She doesn't need me to be perfect. She doesn't need me to get it right. Now, of course, I want to get it right, but when I get that unconditional love from her, it's like, I just believe more in God's unconditional love. And so, I mean, when you start getting that kind of intimacy, sexual intimacy is like, I could take it or leave it. I really could. As someone who was obsessed with it before, it's like, thanks be to God, when we met, I most of that was gone. But still, I didn't know how to have a intimate relationship with someone without being sexual. But the 2 years that I was dating with her, engaged with her, I learned. I learned by how? Sitting with the pain of not knowing what to do and saying, God, teach me, show me how to be gift. How do I be gift? With my touch. Put my hand on her leg, or I touch her in any way. It's like, how do I be gift? Teach me. I have no idea. It feels so good to touch her. I want to take. It's like, God, teach me, sit me with that. Stay with this pain of not being able to satisfy my lust and sit with the lust and let God come into it. That's how we get unconditional love. By sitting in our pain and letting God fill it instead of the control that we're used to. I know I've been relatively intimate here, but again, I want to model this for all of you. And I'm not ashamed of this anymore, because if y'all judge me and look at me like, gosh, what a loser, it's like, I'm good with that, because I've got God's unconditional love. I've got it, and I still can't believe I get to have it at the degree that I do, that I can be so vulnerable with all of you. So, any questions as we end today? Yes?
With the graph that you sent us, the relational square.
Yes?
So, there's that movement. And so if you go to like a fake kind of relationship, you cannot go to the genuine one. You have to bring it back to the bad.
Well, the reason that I said you got to bring it to the bad is because the bad is honest. We have to be honest with God. When we're being fake, the benefit of the fake relationship is it humiliates us, and it's so empty. It's like, that we need help. And then, okay, what do we need help with? Back to the bad, and we sit with the bad.
Go from the fake to genuine.
As a general rule, no. But of course, God can do anything. But the fake is what brings me back to the bad. When I say back to the bad, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, like, if you're in a spousal relationship where the person is, being abusive or inappropriate, that you don't just like sit there, okay, I'm just going to let myself be abused. That's that's not what I'm talking about as far as back to the bad relationship. I'm talking about the bad relationship we have between us and God primarily, about our inability to trust Him with our pain. That's the bad relationship. And because once I start being authentic with God, now my bad relationship with my spouse or with my sibling or with my parent or child, now I can start being authentic with them. Because it's too scary to be authentic if we don't have God's love behind us. It's just too scary. We can't take the risk. And this is where most people live in bad relationships because they can't do it. Is that helpful? Any other questions? Well, it was a gift to share these things with you. Thank you for coming.